We had close to 400 women from, I think, somewhere between 13 to 15 countries. And that sense of Pandora's box opening and that yearning for education and community was so strong, there was no way that this could be a one and done. The box was open. Now it was a question of what do you do with the box?
You're listening to the Rising Tidecast, the podcast for sharing the stories, the lessons, and all the good stuff from legends in the marine industry. Welcome to the Rising Tidecast. Today, I've got a very special guest. She's had an impact on me personally through the amazing work that she does for the marine industry. Michele Goldsmith is the VP and GM of Sounding Trade Only Group. She's a 35-year veteran in the marine industry, the founder of Women in the Industry series, which has connected more than 3,600 marine professionals through events, education, and mentoring. And she's also the 2023 recipient of the Darlene Briggs Marine Woman of the Year Award and the 2024 Alan J. Friedman Leadership Award. Welcome, Michele.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
It's great to have you on. When we met at the Neptune Awards, I said, I have to chat with you, and you're a very special person. So I've done some research about you, and you are not known for just one thing. I think you had a lot of time in the industry, and you've got experience in a wide range of jobs and in areas most people haven't got that. And you're passionate about change and helping others succeed. So I'd love to rewind and take me back to kind of when you first started. Like that first summer, I think you worked alongside your dad at Todd Enterprises, right?
I did.
Yeah, tell me a bit about what you did there.
So I was in a different industry. Unfortunately, my company was sold, so I was exploring what would be next in my career. And at the same time, the operations director for the factory that my father owned, he needed someone to run it. So my father did not own the business. He ran the business. He had partners out of New York. I went to meet with the partners. The partners said, well, you're a woman and you don't have experience, but you have the right last name. So we'll give you 30 days. And I left that business 10 years later. Wow.
Knowing what you do now, that would have probably been something that you heard. I don't know if it was the first time, but that sparked something bigger in you and all that you do now for women in the industry. I think that's a big driving force for you, right?
It is. I think times have definitely changed than the way that it was in the early 90s. But if I can provide education, a series of role models of different people that they get to hear from and meet, and skill sets to handle what might come at them in a different way, because you can't really control what comes to you. What you can control is how you react to it. If I can provide skill sets that help them with that, that gives me satisfaction that they won't have to go through some of what I did at a time when there were so few women within the industry.
Yeah, very important work. I was thinking too, I spent many summers working with my dad. Similarly, it was a different industry and I did all the things from service calls, electronic repairs and stuff like that. And so I learned a lot about my dad and myself at an early age. So being exposed to all the different jobs that required different things, what I liked, what I was naturally good at. When you think back to that time, those 10 years, like what did they teach you about yourself?
It's an interesting dynamic working with family. I clearly remember the day that I was walking down a boat show, two recollections. So one MTech show that I was walking down the aisles with my father and my brother. And my brother never worked in the business, but it was named after him. It's his middle name, Todd. And we were going through the boat show and all of the boat builders continued to speak to my father and my brother and not to speak to me. Yet I was running operations of the factory. So when they got product, when that product was made, was all under my control. And I remember getting really frustrated. And across the aisle was a guy named Rusty Kelly, a big, burly Texan who was running Skeeter at the time. And he said to me, he said, Michele, what's wrong? And I said, they only want to talk to the men and they want to talk to my brother. And my brother doesn't even work in the business. And Rusty, being Rusty, yelled, "You guys can talk to those two men all you want, but if you want anything out of that factory, you better talk to her." So
That's awesome.
that's a clear memory. And I remember the day, and it was after I had left Todd, that I was walking a boat show with my father. And we went past a booth that had Jack Ketchum and Frank Ungaro, two giants of the industry. And I stopped to say hello, and they said, "Oh, you're Michelle's father." So it was the first time that I wasn't Howie's daughter, but he was Michelle's father. And that flip really spoke to me about where I had gotten to in my career. It was really hard to leave that business and leave my father, but it was time. And the direction that the people in New York wanted to go and where I wanted to go differed. The way that it split up is my father designed the products and he sold the products, and I ran the operations of the factory. And for a time, my mother was running the customer service side, but she retired really early. But I had a lot of fun with my father. I traveled with my father. We were extremely, extremely close. And I miss him. He passed away. It'll be 2 years ago next month. And he was in the industry for almost 40 years. So we
Wow.
knew so many of the same people. He was someone that I could go to and ask for advice. And if you talk to the older generation that's within the industry, a lot of them still have fond memories. My father was a very big personality. He's in the Surfing Hall of Fame. He was an All-American hockey player.
Wow.
He was a really interesting guy.
Sounds like I know where you got your "I'm doing all the things" from.
Yeah, the entire family, we all grew up close together. I have 10 cousins. My father had 2 sisters and a brother. And that work ethic or workaholic ethic is commonplace within my family. It was just instilled in us from the get-go. My grandparents owned a factory. My aunt and uncle owned a factory, and my father did as well. So we as teenagers that were cousins were working in all the different factories of our families.
Great experience, and I guess allows you to explore, and see what that part of your personality is, that drive. If you think back to that time, what's something that sticks with you that he taught you that you still use today, besides the work ethic? Because I think that's a big one. Is there something else that stands out?
The relationship base of people by people. So understanding that they're human beings first and clients second has always stuck with me. And my father was horrible at follow through. Awful. Great idea man, wonderful personality, so much fun to be around, hated follow through. So I always was the one doing the follow through. And I think to this day, I'm someone that's very particular about follow through because I've seen what that weakness can do.
It's super important. I'm not very strong in it myself. And, at times when you're like, I should do that. And you see the impact of when it actually works. So it's awesome to be motivated by, I think, something like that you get to experience firsthand.
Yeah, and it's how you treat people. When I think back to those times, I think of the people. And through my whole career in the marine industry, I think of the people. But we had fathers and sons running factories. When my father did pass, we had the funeral. The person that got me the most, that struck my heart the most, was Andre, who was the foreman of our factory, who I hadn't seen since I left Todd. And to know what he had moved back to Guatemala at that point. I remember giving him his gift. I gave him a Leatherman when he left to go to Guatemala. And to know that he was back in the States and how his family was flourishing and that he was well, that after all these years, all the people that worked in that factory, they all came to see my dad. That stays with you. They were family.
It's an industry, I think, that, like you said, it's built on people, but there's so many people that want to support you and do good things. Like, it's the wonderful place where, in my experience, there's just a lot of people that do want to help. Fortunately, that's where you really shine, as I've experienced. And, 35 years in now, you've met a lot of people, and I'm sure have so many relationships. Not only that, but you've got a lot of credentials. You're on the boards. won all the awards.
Now I feel old.
Now, accomplished. We'll say accomplished, right? So now I know that 2021, I believe, you had the first Women in the Industry event.
Yes, 5 years. We are
Amazing.
about to celebrate 5 years. It was on my brother's birthday, June 3rd, 2021.
Well, that's even more special then. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not a company initiative with a budget and stuff. It's a personal mission that you've built on top of your full-time role. Is that right?
It's a personal mission that I've been able to fit into a corporate environment because we do have sponsorship, which allows us to do things. It keeps the corporate side happy, but it also then allows us to come out with all of the programming that we do and hire the speakers that we want to have. So I would say it's my initiative, but it's also been something that I've had great support on by the corporations that I've worked for and by the industry. It's nice when you're at an event or you see someone and it's someone that you don't expect and they come up and they say, keep going with what you're doing with the women in the industry. It's important.
That's the moment, or probably one of many moments, that tells you you're on the right track, right?
Yes.
That first event in 2021, where was it? How many people showed up? Take me back.
So I had worked in the component side of the industry for the vast majority of my career, 27 years. And I joined Active Interest Media in February of 2018. At that time, I mainly knew the presidents of companies because of the work that I've done with boards and electrical engineers, because that's really who I dealt with. I did run marketing for some of the companies that I had worked for, but I was running internal marketing and I knew some of the media people because I was buying media for those companies. But I didn't know anyone in marketing, or very few, I should say. So with a friend, I started hosting dinners for people in marketing, and actually to pay it forward to some of the women that had been really fantastic to me, like Chris Carroll and Joan Maxwell and Marcia Cull. I also hosted women in leadership dinners at the ABC conference in DC. So I had done that for a couple of years when I joined Active Interest Media, and then COVID hit and we couldn't do those dinners. So I thought, well, what if I did a virtual event instead? Because we were starting to do a lot of virtual events in 2021. And I said, I don't want to do a mixology thing or something where people can't speak, but maybe I'll bring the two dinners together and we'll do a virtual breakfast where we can talk. And then as I was putting together the guest list, I realized that I didn't need to limit it because it was going to be a virtual event. And then it hit me that there had never really been a large-scale event focused on women in the marine industry during my tenure. And I thought, well, what a great opportunity. Everybody's home. We can't go anywhere. Let's put together something that is the largest women's event that's been held. I started out just thinking about who I would invite, and I was up to 100 names. And then I asked some of my friends, and that grew to close to 200 names. And then I said, well, if we're going to get 200 women together, let's make it really special. So we got sponsors involved because we did breakfast boxes, and everything in the breakfast box, with one exception, was from a female-run company. So the first 100 people that registered in the US or in North America got a breakfast box that had a muffin and coffee and some gifts from our sponsors. And so we did that. And I also hired a dear friend of mine who had been my life coach. And I said, look, we're going to have women that are at the start of their careers, that are in their final stages of their career, and everything in between. We need to pick a topic that will make sense to all of them and inspire them. And I knew Alicia was the best person to do that. And she did one on making meaning in your life. And it just snowballed. And by the time we were done, we had 350 people that registered and showed up. But on top of that, some of those people had watch parties where they actually went into a conference room and all the women that worked within that company were watching together. And it was a fantastic session, knowing that we had, close to 400 women from, I think, somewhere between 13 to 15 countries, and that sense of Pandora's box opening and that yearning for education and community was so strong, there was no way that this could be a one and done. The box was open. Now it was a question of what do you do with the box?
Yeah.
So what we've done with the box is we've done 25 events in the last 5 years, some international, some domestic, some in person, some virtual. And when I looked at the numbers in preparation for this, we had over 5,500 register for events, and we had 3,600 that actually came in and attended over that 5-year period. So
That's
it's
amazing.
just been beyond what I ever expected. Even last year, I mean, I had been to an event through an innovation festival that I go to. I had been at an experiential marketing company. They did the launch of Game of Thrones, and they did a blood drive. And I thought, how wild. They did a global blood drive as part of it because they thought that blood was the ultimate sacrifice. And I thought, no one in the marine industry is going to give me their blood. It's not happening.
Maybe if you ask kindly, yeah.
But they could walk. So we came up with the idea for the Global Women's Walk, or I did, where, walk a 5K wherever you are with whomever you choose. And then there was that opportunity to have it go beyond the women in the marine industry group and actually have that ripple effect where we could impact change for girls across the globe. And that's when we partnered with Room to Read. And in that first year, to see that, 1,200 men and women walked from 15 countries. There were entire boat companies. Bat Cove had shirts made with a Rosie the Riveter on it that said, "We build boats, Global Women's Walk." And we raised enough money for, I think it was 250 graphic novels and 15 mentors for a year for girls that are really at risk. And this was just, a baby idea that snowballed. And now we're going into the second year of the Global Women's Walk with a goal to raise enough money to support an entire school.
It's amazing.
So, I would say don't be afraid of ideas because you never know where they can go. And it's super humbling that the industry embraced the ideas in the way that they have and have been as supportive.
The success that they've had, what does it tell you about what you're doing and what does it tell you about the need for that?
If you listen to Buddhist teachings or the Dalai Lama, which sounds woo-woo and out there, but there are human conditions that are universal. And people want to be seen, heard, accepted for who they are. And I think most people are continual learners in different ways. So I think what these events and these programs have done is that they've helped satisfy that common human need. It's a safe place to ask questions. It's a safe place to learn. It's a place to network and meet peers. I hope that's what they've done. And I hope that they've made good connections. I mean, look at the mentoring program.
It's amazing. That's another thing that I'd love to touch on. But even back to that first event, you've got this drive to build something that's amazing for other people. I know about the work ethic and the drive and you're wanting to do good, just the way you think and the way you're so well-rounded in talking about human needs, which is not always the case for many leaders. But I know from knowing Chris, you're in good company there with people. But when you said, I'm going to do this initiative, and now you've grown that to the walk as well, what did you hear or see or feel and knew this is going to be big, this is going to be something that is going to be great for everyone?
Alicia, who spoke, she said she believes that everything is energy, that people give off energy, and that if you go to a concert versus watching a concert on TV, there's an energy when you're in the space versus when you see it on a flat screen.
Yes.
What was so amazing about that first event was that even though we were on a flat screen, the energy was palpable. I think we had somewhere close to 450 chat messages happening in the midst of that event. It wasn't only that they were listening and that they attended, it was the engagement. And that has continued in all of the events. If I look back at the number of chat messages that we get, it's that engagement and that energy, and to have that kind of energy be that palpable. And of course, it was COVID time as well. So this opportunity to connect, that basic human need of person-to-person connection, and to finally have it be something that was specifically for women and women that work in this industry. We only make up, somewhere between 2 to 3% of the workforce. I remember when we first did the first international one at Met's Trade. So British Marine, Met's Trade, Marine Industry News, and Sounding Street Only, we got together and each year we do a panel that I moderate. And the first one that we did, there was an editor from Super Yacht Times that wrote afterwards, and she said, what the women on stage did for us today was we now have role models. There were no role models for us that were visible in the industry, and now we have role models. That wasn't even on my radar when we did this. It was an opportunity for women to gather, to learn, to network, and to hear from their peers. But to know that we had also then created a space where they could meet women that they would consider to be role models, that was really moving for me.
That's huge. I mean, I think having that be an impact you never even thought of, that was something that's so powerful. That's got to feel amazing and like you're on the right track, Yeah,
absolutely. The best part for me is to hear from the women and the men. You and I met at Neptune and you told me about what the mentoring had done for you. But to hear how it's changed the way that they interact with their customers, their peers, their bosses, and the opportunities that they're getting because they're not using tentative language anymore. They know how to negotiate for themselves. They have that presence that they didn't know that they were going to have. And they've met women whose stories have touched them. That connecting of women and making sure that they learn and that they can move on and go do that. That's the satisfaction for me.
Everyone wants to put on an event that has that many people engaged. And it's not always due to just the speaker or just the person hosting it, right? That's a large part of it. But what is it that brings that special engagement and just the community side of things that probably gets people to want to attend and get more out of it than what you intended?
That's the weight of it, is topping yourself over and over and over again. And for me, the secret sauce has always been the mix of people and their stories that you put together and the energy that they bring together. Especially, we did an event on changing consumer behavior and its impact on the marine industry at Miami. And the back and forth between the panelists, who were all exceptional, was fantastic. And it kept that engagement in the room. So I would say, for me, it's really important that the people that are involved within the program, whether they're men or women, that I feel the weight of getting really, really, really good people, good content, and making sure that if they're going to give us that time, that it's valuable for them.
It's a great way to lead with as far as bringing in the circle and sharing with other people.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond the women's programs. We did the Marine Ideas Exchange, the mixed program at IBEX last year, and I couldn't have asked for a better lineup. I mean, to hear Bill Yergin and Jason Lippert, who together probably managed $7 billion worth of business, talking about building your company culture and using it as a force for good, or having Steve Heast lead a panel on the future of boating retail with the head of West Marine and two major boat dealers and a boat builder. It's bringing those people together and having them share their expertise and their experience. That's the toughest part, but the most rewarding part when it works.
And that's what's shocked me about the one-to-one mentoring program that you started. It's such an amazing thing. Having personally experienced it, I don't know how common something like this is in other industries, if it exists or not. But honestly, when I heard about it, it feels like a huge unlock for your career, and the access to people that you orchestrate, which I would imagine is a lot of work, for free. It just seems like it was too good to be true when I first heard about it. And then it happened and I was just like, what? How is this a real thing? This is amazing, for free, like just to give back. So
I understand that feeling because that's what happened to me. I mean, that program grew out of a program that I did I was the mentee during COVID. And the opportunity that I had to meet the woman that runs the Elevate Prize and the woman that designed all the sustainable packaging for Puma and the head of marketing for Bitcoin. Those were 3 of mine.
Huge.
And it was, yes, I paid to be part of that conference, but to have that one-on-one time for 30 minutes with those people, that's really valuable, and thought, well, why not bring that to the marine industry? And am really grateful for the network of friends that have all decided to be mentors. I'm in the midst of putting the mentors together for this year's program. And we've had men and women from all over the globe, from France to South Africa to Belgium to Canada to all over the US. And it's so easy. You don't have to go anywhere. It's all virtual.
No, it's nuts. Well, backtrack a second. For people who don't know what it is, explain it and what's the, purpose behind it as well.
So I'm calling it the 1+1 mentoring program and pair connection this year, because even people in senior leadership have been after me that they want to sign up for sessions. So basically what happens is, if you're interested in being part of the program, we set up a landing page that lists for you a photo and bio of all of the mentors involved. It's men and women from across the globe that want to do this. And during the time frame of this year, it'll be June 17th, we'll have our kickoff event. And then from June 17th to June 26th, each of the mentors will offer 4 40-minute sessions of time. So their bio, their photo, and their times are on the landing page. And as a mentee, you fill out a form. You basically tell them who you are. It can be as simple as, linking your LinkedIn profile to it, so the mentors have an idea of who you are and what your experience is. And then you say what you want to get out of the session. Then behind the scenes, when the registration period for that will be May 1st to May 21st, the website should be up right around April 15th. And when the registration period is over, we match people on a first come, first served basis with their first, second, third choice of mentor. And then the sessions happen. And it's 30 minutes of the mentee asking the mentor questions and 10 minutes of the mentor reverse mentoring and asking the mentee questions.
I think the one thing that gives this the weight that you didn't mention is the actual people that you have as the mentors. Explain who this pool consists of.
We try to do a wide range of sectors of the industry and positions. So you could get the CMO of a major company. You could get the CEO of a major company. That company could be in engines, components, boat building. It could be the head of an association. We've had most of the iconic names that from Chris Carroll to Joan Maxwell. They're both returning this year. Eric Fetchko from Dometic is returning this year. Lori Levere, who does marketing for them. Tom Damrick, who ran NMMA, has been a mentor. Mark Schwabero, who was CEO of Brunswick, has been a mentor. Anya Denari, who heads up Navico Group, one of the heads of Safe Harbors. Gus Blakely from Suzuki has been a mentor. So it runs the gamut, but they're senior leaders and icons of the industry.
And the matching is the special part about it too. Like my friend and work partner, or my friend and client, Josie, who I was telling you about at the Neptune Awards, they build boats in Australia. She got paired up with Chris Carroll and Steve Heese and was just like, oh my God, this was amazing. How much she took away to have access like that is just unreal. And I know there's many special components to it, but from what I read as well, the 1+1 mentoring program, I think you have a 90% ongoing connection rate.
We do.
Between everyone.
We do.
That's rare, isn't it? For any industry program. I mean, obviously, if you get access to someone like that and you form a connection, because everyone that I had spoken to as well was just super open and happy to answer questions, happy to ask. It was amazing.
The funny thing is, when the program is done, I hear more from the mentors than I do from the mentees about how much they enjoyed being a part of it.
The giving back part when you get to that stage is, I think, important.
Absolutely. It's a way to give back. It's a way to share their knowledge and their experience. And it's a way to understand what it's like for someone just coming into the industry, whether they're coming in from another industry or if they're really young. Either way, it's just understanding what it's like for them to enter into a completely new industry. I mean, if you think about our industry, it's a small circle of people. Most people know each other. Most people have known each other for a long time. It's hard to break into that. And then it has its own language and its own calendar. So you can't go in and expect everyone to know ICOMIA, NMMA, MRAA, ABYC.
Trying to explain that to people when even people that work with me, then, the first 6 months is like, no, there's another term. Sorry, we're going to get used to that. Is something special like that connection and the matches that you've seen? Like, are there any standout stories that you've heard that made an impact?
I can't tell you that there's one specific story with a mentor. I can tell you that one of the mentees actually wound up starting her own business. And hearing that from her, that it gave her the courage to go out on her own and build her own business, that was really amazing to me. But I think it comes in, when are you doing it again?
Yeah.
I want to take part again. Or last year we didn't do it. We're going to do it every other year now because it is a lot of work. And one of the mentors wrote to me and said, did I not get asked this year? Am I not a mentor? Did I miss something? So to know that it means that much to them, I think is really good. And I had some of the attendees in February came up to me afterwards and said, where can we get more information? And usually the best place to get information on all of these programs and what I'm doing is just follow me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I post everything.
You are a wealth of information on LinkedIn. I love that, sharing the stories. Yeah, I had conversations with Amber Home and Lori as well.
Yeah, Amber was a fantastic mentor. She is CMO of Winnebago Industries, but has such a long history in marketing of consumer goods. Everything from Firestone tires to you name it. She's done so much.
You talked about the mentors. One of the things that they enjoyed, I guess, learning about was getting into the industry and what that's like. So I'm a dad of 3 young girls. I love being a part of this industry. They love spending time on the water. Who knows what happens in the future? But if a young woman told you that she was thinking of getting a career in the marine industry, what would you tell her?
I would say that there's a wide range of jobs. So first of all, figure out what you want to do, because you can do everything from being an attorney to working on a factory floor to running marketing to running manufacturing operations like I did, sales, media. So figure out where your interests are and then research the companies and the culture at the companies that you're interested in. Because I think each of the panels that I've run, they've all basically said who you work for matters and the opportunities that they present to you. So I would say think about the companies, think about the types of positions, and sometimes it's not the right fit. You know, I hired someone who I really, really liked. She took major initiatives. And in the end, about 6 months into the job, she said, I like working for you. I like what I'm doing, but this isn't my calling. And I said, go find your calling.
Yeah. Well, that's an amazing thing on both sides.
Yeah.
Number one, to figure that out and say something about it. And number two, to have the support to do that, which is rare.
Thank you. But yes, that's the way it should be. So for someone coming in, I would say figure that out first. And then I hope that they look at we record everything that we do. And there's a page, tradeonlytoday.com/women in the industry. And there's a dash between women in the industry.
We'll put that in the show notes.
They can look at any of the things that we're doing. And I would encourage them to come to a boat show and walk a boat show, whether it's a boat show or a component show. The woman that I was just talking about that wound up departing, she had of her own initiative after doing the mentoring program. She went to IBEX. So she got a feel for the different companies, the different products that they make. She went to some of the networking events. She went to some of the educational sessions. But taking that opportunity, if there's a regional boat show that's right in the area where you live, that's an opportunity as well. And then I would say with social media, network and find out if there's someone within your circle that knows people that work within the industry, and do some research that way. What's their thoughts on the industry? Where would they suggest that she go? And go from there. And then when you're finally in, I would say look for mentors within your company and outside of your company.
Great advice. It's a great path if it fits, right? And that's a great way to figure that out. One of the things I think that relates to that we spoke about briefly when we met was values. I think probably company values are super important, but also your values are very important to me personally and the people that I do business with. And so I know you also feel a similar way. So tell me more about values and how they play a role in your life.
Values are everything. I stick to my values. I have my entire career. In fact, each time I've made a change within where I work, it has been because the values of the company did not align with my personal values. And that reveals itself in different ways. It's very, very important. And it also is not only the values of the company, but it's sharing your values in the way that you treat your team. I expect my team to work hard, and I model that. I get my hands as dirty as they do. I have no problem with that. But the expectation is that the values that they have and the values that I have align. And that includes the way that we treat our clients, especially.
It's huge. I think it makes you feel like you're part of a community too when you share those similar values and feels respected, but also it's how you enjoy work more is aligning.
It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the energy that you put out and the fact that people want to be seen, heard, respected. That's all a part of it. It's servant leadership.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's making sure that when you leave a place better than when you found it.
The steward. I love that. Yep.
Yeah.
And, doing a lot of work with Grady White, values are absolutely everywhere.
Absolutely.
Chris runs on that. And it's very special to see how that impacts everything that gets produced in that company and people's enjoyment of work there.
And it's from the top all the way down.
That's right.
It's modeled all the way through. There's a speaker we had several years ago. His name is Balaji Krishnamurthy. Balaji defined leadership, and he said leadership is leverage and legacy. It's how many people you impact over how much time. And when I think about Chris Carroll and her leadership at Grady White and the people that she's led over decades of time, she is a signature leader for leverage and legacy.
It's apparent as soon as you walk in there. Between the people that work with her, the dealers, that also the impact from leading with that intention, I think is way bigger than most people realize.
And she's a continual learner. I mean, Chris reads all the time and recommends books all the time.
And people get paid for reading books at our company, which is amazing. That's very, very cool. One of the other things we talked about was your trekking the summits, because that I think ties in with probably your values and wanting to grow. But I would love to know, because you climbed Everest Base Camp, you've done Kilimanjaro. Most wouldn't consider either of those a vacation. So when you started this, was there something going on in your life that made you want to do this?
So during COVID, I am someone that travels between 100 to 130 days a year. And I did not know how to be home. It was very strange. For me, it's if I'm not on a plane once a month, something's very strange.
Right. Right.
So to be home for that amount of time was absolutely crazy. And a friend of mine recommended doing a virtual Camino de Santiago together that she had heard about. And it was people from across the globe that each day you got information in your email inbox about where you were going. And I started walking and I said, well, I can't do the Camino, but I gave myself a goal during COVID that year of 2021 of walking 1,000 miles, which I completed.
Wow.
And in the midst of that, I found this online app called the Conqueror Events, where you could virtually climb Mount Fuji. They had different hikes and walks. They had a Camino de Santiago on there as well. And I started using that app, and you could see other people that were in different parts of the trail from all over the globe. It was fun. And in 2022, as things started opening up, that company, they're a New Zealand company, and they did their first guided trek to Everest on Everest Base Camp. And there was a woman that was part of the journey, and I wound up connecting with her on Facebook and asked her some questions about how difficult it was and how it was working with them. And what I liked about their trip was that it was helicopters to Lukla, where you begin, because you can't fly directly from Kathmandu into Lukla. You have to take a bus 6 hours away. It's more complex. So you could take a helicopter, and then you took helicopters back, which meant that I could do the entire trek, including flight time to and from Kathmandu, in 15 days, which was probably the maximum I could ever take off of work. So at Christmas that year of 22, my gift to myself was the down payment on going to Everest Base Camp. And, I hadn't done anything like that. In 22, I wound up doing the Camino de Santiago, a shorter route, the Portuguese route, for 12 days. Absolutely loved it. Met amazing people I'm still in touch with, about a half a dozen of them. So that was fantastic. That was a 12-day, 192 miles, but mainly flat. But Everest was a place that I always wanted to go to. It's awe-inspiring. It is the highest mountain in the globe. I had read Krakauer's book, Into Thin Air, in the 90s when it came out. After that, I was not keen on climbing it. And still 1 in 15 lose a limb, like 1 in 15 die and 1 in 20 lose a limb. And I'm like, no, or a toe or a finger or something. Yeah. Wasn't, sure that my body, I'm in my 50s, could have done that. So I signed up in December of 2022 and started training. And I thought, are you nuts? I mean, you don't know a soul that's going. I had in my head that they were all going to have like washboard stomachs and look like they should be on the front photograph of Outside Magazine. And here I was, this chick that was going to try to trek with them, and no bathrooms in terms of running water, no heat. So no showers, nothing for 8 days. But I thought, what an adventure. And I've always wanted to go. And so I just did it. And it was probably the best thing I've ever done. The people, there were 7 of us. 5 out of the 7 made it to base camp on their own feet. 2 made it on horseback. And it was the most physically challenging thing I had done to that point. And you can't describe what it's like to walk in the middle of the Himalayan mountains. Majestic. We kept trying to come up with words for it. You can't. And what I love too is that life is reduced to where you're going to put your foot next. We had Sherpas when we did Everest because you had to bring certain things. But for the most part, it's just you and your backpack. So life gets reduced to something so simple. And I learned that on the Camino too. There's a rhythm to it, and it's where you're putting your feet, and it's understanding the nature around you, and it slows you down. And for me, it's this synergy of mind, body, and spirit that all come together. And it's such a joyful place to be. And I absolutely loved it. And then I came back and like 3 days later had to go to the ABC conference. And the first thing people said was, how was it? And the next thing people said is, what are you going to do next? And my answer was, please let me just enjoy this.
Yes, that's right. It sounds like that's part of the discovery process in yourself and changing who you are and how you see the world from experiencing things like this. And it's a feeling. That's probably why it's indescribable, right? Because it's so much of an experience and how you feel about being amongst these amazing places. We used to live in Whistler, and although we took a gondola to the top of the mountain and a couple chairlifts, it was still just one of those things that you just feel small and you feel like connected also. I'm wondering, what did you bring back that you learned about yourself being on these treks?
I think you learn that you can do really hard things, and that sense of achievement when you do them. You have to want Everest bad. I mean, I looked at the numbers. There's only 3,500 people a year that are Americans that actually make it to the base camp.
Wow.
Same with the Kili, by the way. I looked up the numbers there, too. They say it's anywhere between 3,500 to 7,000 Americans that actually make it to summit.
Right.
But that push of yourself, that discipline. I mean, I've had that since I was a kid. I was a competitive figure skater since I was a little kid. And, when you get up at 4:30 in the morning and you skate for an hour and a half before you go to school and you spend your summers in Lake Placid training 6 hours a day, it's instilled in you. I come from an athletic family. I told you my father skated. He was an unbelievable surfer, founder of surfing in New England. So there's some really amazing statistics that women in leadership, female leaders, such a high percentage of them were competitive athletes or professional athletes. So it teaches you, but I think what I found is being back out, doing hard things, being in nature and reducing life to its simplest forms, it just brings me so much joy. I remember that last day on Everest. I will remember it for the rest of my life because I was so proud of myself because there were two Canadians that had a private trainer and were training in the Canadian mountains. And we were the fast team, the three of us, and Steph and Matt. And they had gone ahead with someone that last day. And I had sprinted up the end of a really hard hill the day before and learned my lesson. I could bring my heart rate down. I taught aerobics for a long time, so I know how to bring my heart rate down. But my legs were jelly. And I knew that if they were going to go do that all the way to base camp, that their legs were going to be jelly on the way back. And I didn't want to do that. And they left without me. I mean, I said I wouldn't do lunch and I would start with them, but they left without me. And the rest of the group decided to stay and have lunch. So there I am. It's the last day. I've got the Himalayan mountains all around me. I can see Lhotse. I can see Everest. I can see Manaslu. You've got all of these mountains completely surrounding you. And I'm on this mountain ridge. And I made some really bad turns. There were some boulders that were huge that I had to climb over. It's not like there's directions to get to Everest Base Camp or that there was a huge trail of people where I was either. So I was on this mountain ridge. I had my headphones in. I was listening to Miley Cyrus Flowers. And and when that song ended, I said, oh my God, I can see where all the tents are and base camp is, which was kind of off this way down the hill. But I had no idea how to get there. And I'm enjoying myself. I'm listening to music. And I finally realized I have no idea how to get to where I need to get to. And it's not like I can phone a friend. So thankfully, for a couple of reasons, two Asian men in bright red coats that were right around my pace came by me and I started to follow them. And I was really glad that I did. And they kept stopping to take photos, which was great because I wound up with some photos on the Khumbu Glacier that I never would have had if I hadn't run into those two men. And together, the three of us found our way to the marker for base camp. But it defines you in certain ways because people start to know you as someone that will take those risks and do hard things. But to me, it correlates directly to leadership. You research, you train, you understand what you're getting yourself into. You make sure that you have a great team around you. And then you find, it didn't matter to me if I was going to have to crawl. I was making it to base camp. So just like you do with a team, you make sure that you're successful. And I look at my team leader when there were two women that just that last day couldn't make it. And the fact that he pivoted, found horses and got them to base camp so that we could all be together at base camp just speaks to how a leader reacts.
It's so amazing, the parallel of your story and telling this that I'm drawing in my mind too. Like, you literally help do this for other people through the programs that you do. They see the end goal. They know, hey, I want to be in this industry, but they don't know the path to get there. And it's very similar as you setting up these programs, the way that you guys help guide and get the teams together and give somebody a community to do it with. It's a very special thing. In line with, I think, your mission, which is great. It's not I just want to go hiking.
And I think for most people that have done Everest Base Camp, it's pretty common that you then do Kilimanjaro. And my team leader from Kilimanjaro was actually our guest speaker on our last Women in the Industry event. She's a combat vet. She's a cancer survivor. We had an amazing time. We did a 4-day safari, 5 of us, and then 17 of us climbed Kilimanjaro together. And that summit night, again, something that I'll never forget. And it was brutal. Everest, I found as difficult as it was, the summit night of Kilimanjaro was really brutal.
Wow. Yeah. And I'm assuming you're not done either.
No, I'm not done.
Of course not.
No, this year I'm going back to the Camino. I'm doing something a little bit lighter. And then next year, hopefully, I will be in Bhutan. So I have always wanted to go to Bhutan. I want to go to a country whose gross national product is happiness. So I will be in the land of the Thunder Dragon and hopefully hiking up to Tiger's Nest, the monastery set into the mountains. And if I can swing it, I'd love to do part of Snowmen, which is supposed to be the most difficult trek in the globe.
I like it. Set the bar for yourself.
Look, when I think about retirement, I think about all the treks that are month-long treks that I can't do now. Mm-hmm. If you want to know what I'm going to do the first year of retirement, that's pretty much it.
I love it. Your own bucket list, but with a long...
Yeah, but I've got a ways to go till then.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Well, I guess when you get back to then work, I do want to touch on what you're doing now at Soundings Trade Only as well, because I think that's it's a very special thing, B2B publication for our industry. And we're going through a big change too in media right now with everything that's happening with AI and the rest of it.
And I'd love to talk about Trade Only. I mean, it's home for me. It's a product. It's a media platform. It's an opportunity for people to be inspired. It's a place to reflect and inform the industry. We put out a monthly magazine because we're a news organization. We have a daily e-newsletter that comes out every business day, and we do a number of different events. So last year I did one on trade tariffs and taxes that we held both virtually and then at the Mets Trade Show. We do the Mix event at IBEX, and we do a series of other things. Even during COVID, we did a Pitch the Pros because no one could go pitch their products or go visit any factories. So to do a 5-minute elevator pitch virtually was something that we did. So Trade Only we celebrated our 40th anniversary in 2019. So
wow. Amazing.
Yeah. So we're 47 years old now.
That's very, very special. It's another way you're giving back to people in the industry, by these platforms and informing us. We need it, right?
Yeah, and we have an amazing team. Gary Rich and the editorial team with Dave Conway and Kim Cabin and Mike Labella. They do a fantastic job. And our sales team is fantastic. Production team is fantastic. And again, it's that pressure of constantly having to one-up yourself and do something different. In terms of media, what I see is, and I spoke about this actually at the Dusseldorf show this year. To me, if someone asked me about the future of media, what I would say is the way that people consume media will continue to evolve and change. The same way people shop is changing. People don't go to the mall and try things on as much anymore. They order online. So the way that you consume media, although I will say I still like the tactical of holding a magazine and reading the whole story, because I think a magazine has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's a whole story.
And it's bringing in your senses as well.
It is.
Which is an important part, experiential, like your, inspiration for the Women's Walk.
Yes, exactly. So the way that people consume, that's going to continue to evolve. And I hope it gets more interactive as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I believe will remain constant is the desire for unique, compelling, and unbiased content in whatever form that takes. And for people that are trying to promote their products, I would say that if you have that compelling, unique content, that drives eyeballs. And if they're trying to promote their products somewhere, they want somewhere that people are placing their eyeballs. So I would say that also then plays to what the audience wants and providing a vehicle for those people to promote their products within that compelling content.
You want it to be your brand, right? But you also want it to serve the people that you want to speak to, that you want to be part of your community. And I think it's a hard thing for many brands to nail because there's a disconnect, between needing to make something that is tried and true for many years, right? But doesn't work the same that it does now.
And we've changed. I mean, when I look at what trade looked like when I got to the company, it was a newspaper. The front cover had multiple stories and little photographs. And I remember the day that I went to the offices in Essex, Connecticut with the mock-up of the full bleed single photo cover and talked to them about having articles that were like having a full meal, that you had an appetizer, a main course, and dessert, that you had short form and long form, and that we were more graphically enhanced. And some of the conversations that we had, 7-8 years ago that have impacted the way that trade looks today.
Right. So that's pioneering. I think part of that is the story that you tell, or the stories within your publication. What advice do you give to brands that are maybe not hitting the mark or not getting the engagement or the goals that they're looking for with the content that they're putting out in the industry?
I think people have to be bold in order to be heard. There's so much content coming at us. I think Stephanie Vadalaro said it was somewhere between 10,000 to 14,000 messages that we get from brands a day. That's crazy. So if you think about it from that standpoint, where does your brand stand out? How bold can you be? And how consistent can you be? Will they look at something and say, I know that's Nike?
It's a hard dance, I think, between what is accepted by the brand and how far outside that you can step to be bold, right?
But I would say one other thing about it too is I think, some people will tell you, go ask the customers. But I think about what Jobs said is, if you're inventing the future, people don't know that they want it yet, for paraphrasing.
Yes.
And then
great.
I remember I went to a session with the woman that was head of documentaries for Warner Brothers at the time. And she said, if I had listened to what the focus group was saying, the documentary RBG Notorious would never have been made. Just
Right.
wouldn't have been made.
Right.
And so I would say, yes, talk to your customers, especially if it's product and product feature focused. But in terms of how you're putting yourself out there, understanding who you are, what you want to be when you grow up, what values you have, and then telling that story in a bold way, that's how you do it. And I think you need to hit people at their heartstrings. Don't just tell them that they should run. Tell them why they need a pair of Nike sneakers to run, and tell the stories of the people and what they've achieved within those Nike sneakers that is aspirational for the people that you're trying to get to.
I mean, that's everything that we do, that I love to do. It's all the story-driven work, and the emotional connection that you make with somebody is so much more powerful than getting their attention by a trendy edit of a video of a reel of a boat, right? Because you're making them feel something, and they remember you for that because you've changed how they feel and how they see whatever that is and see the world. And you make it easy for them to understand how that relates to their life and how that's going to be better for them.
Yeah, they say that in this price conscious, situation that we're in today's world, that people are less brand loyal. But I still think that there are brands that they trust, especially for certain things like news.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Like medical care, like the automobile that they drive, or the piece of electronics that they communicate with the world with. So I do think that there's brand loyalty, and the question is, how do you build that? And I think part of the way that you build that is in the way that you take care of your customers.
That's a great way to wrap things up. Is there something that we haven't spoken about that you'd love to?
I do want to remind people that the Global Walk is going to happen in May, and that we're trying to raise enough money to support a school, because they take over schools now. But
Yes.
we'll take over a school with room to read, and there will be, somewhere in the world, women in the Marine school. I think that's really a worthy goal.
It's very special.
I hope that even in these dark times that they understand that we're all the same as humans, and we want the same things. And that as divided as we may seem, that there's more that unifies us than divides us. And that in every case since the dawn of time, even when things have been dark, lightness has always won.
Yes, doing the good and having the values to continue to do that, right?
I hope that we bring more light out into the world, and that people continue to read Soundings Trade Only.
I think so as well. And I think, you know what? It's a magnetic thing.
And I should say, the magazine is free. If you work in the marine industry, just go to tradeonlytoday.com/subscribe, because it's free. So is the newsletter. There's no paywalls or firewalls or any of that. So please take advantage of the information that's being put out there.
I love that. I'm still trying to find what you charge money for.
We have wonderful advertisers who graciously support the work that we do.
It's so great. Well, it allows you to do the wonderful things that you are doing. Thank you for sharing these stories. They're awesome, and you are very much an inspiration, and more people should listen to your story, and there's a lot of gold in there. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for having me, and for coming up at the Neptune Awards, because it was so moving to me to hear how much that program meant to you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's one of my love languages is getting feedback. So I love to give it whenever I can. And that was a very impactful couple of conversations I had. So thank you for that. I very much appreciate it. Where can people follow you and stay connected with you and what you're building?
LinkedIn is the main place, which is Michele J. Goldsmith is where you can find me. And I think you're going to include that information as well. Otherwise, the tradeonlytoday.com/women in the industry with the dashes. That's where you can find all of the programming, and Trade Only Today for Trade Only. So that's it.
Thank you, Michele. That was awesome. If you are listening and love this episode and took something away, definitely share it with someone else who could take something away from it. I don't think there would be anybody who couldn't. So
thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciate it.